And it's really, this is for those who want to understand, the Torah. And I'm not saying don't convert to Judaism. There's no reason to do that. God didn't make a mistake. If he made you Gentile or he made you Jewish, that doesn't matter, because none of that matters ultimately in the kingdom. All that really matters is our faith and our trust and hope in Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah. So with that, what kind of trouble are we in? And by the way, I always tell people, ask, can I share your name or your whatever? I say, yeah, go ahead. We're in so much trouble now, it doesn't matter anyway. So the government has tried to kick us out, and in a moment you'll understand why. We are actively sharing Messiah's love here in Israel. And the way we do that is either one-on-one with divine appointments on the street, and I'll talk about that more. Or we work with our sons, Ariel and Avi. And so we have a ministry called Heart of God Ministries. God is with a G-D. And just so when you see that in any of our ministry outreach materials, the reason we do that, that is an Orthodox Jewish custom I grew up with. And it's only done out of love and reverence for the name of God. So that's the only reason to do that. But we work with our sons at Tree of Life Israel Ministries, and we have made videos. Now there's one video I've seen, and they didn't know who that was, because we don't plaster our names all over everything. It's called Isaiah 53, the Forbidden Chapter. And if you look at that on YouTube, what you'll see is a young man on the street with a microphone going up to Israelis and saying, would you like to read a chapter of the Bible that the rabbis don't want you to see? And so what happened with this is many, many Israelis started reading Isaiah 53 for the first time. And they started saying, wait, this isn't from the New Testament. No, it's from the Tanakh. It's from the Old Testament. And they were shocked and said, well, how come we never were told this before? And so that video has gone viral. Over 12 million people have seen it. And over a couple million Israelis have seen it. Almost 2 million Israelis have seen it as well. And what happened is, because it's on social media, and we put a link there for people to call, people would call and respond, many times with curses. Okay, that's to be expected. But many would call and say, can I meet you at a coffee shop? Or can I call you and I have questions. And so thus began this whole openness. And so we started making more and more videos. And there's one that I absolutely love. It's called The Great Jewish Leader. If you go to the Tree of Life website, I highly recommend that one, because that one is interviewing Israelis and asking them, telling them about a great Jewish leader who lived in Israel. And these are the things he did and said and the impact he had here. And who is it? Let's see if you can guess. And almost nobody guesses.
What was the title of that again? The Great Jewish Leader?
The Great Jewish Leader. Yeah. And so when they see who it is, that it's Yeshua, okay, some got angry, but many said, I never knew this about him. He's so full of love and compassion, and he was healing and doing good. And so this has generated a huge response. Had other encounters with people where one time I was in Zichron Yaakov, was taking the group to the Aliyah Museum, and I was out of money on my Ravkav. That's how you get the bus, the public transportation. So I told the group, hold on just a minute, I need to run in there. And then I decided to just tell the girl who was in there, and introduce her to the believers on the phone too, while I was filling the Ravkav. And and began to talk with her and began to share. And I asked her, somehow, and this has actually started a whole new thing in prayer walking with my husband too. That time I was alone though. And I asked her, have you ever read the 10 Commandments? And she said, yes. And I said, have you ever broken one? And she said, no. So I said to her, well, you just broke one because you just told a lie. And she said, well, a little lie, you know. And I said, no, it doesn't work that way. Sin is sin. And it could be a big lie, it could be a little lie, it doesn't matter. It's still breaking of what God said we're supposed to honor. And she thought about it. She said, and then something hit her, and I began to share with her. And at the end of the conversation, she said, where can I get a New Testament in Hebrew? I want to read this book. And this is the kind of thing we're seeing. I have so many stories from the altar of prayer. My husband and I, every Wednesday morning, wake up, and we say, okay, Lord, show us, where do you want us to go today? The point is, you're allowed when most people think it's illegal to share Messiah or whatever. I just want to say this, it's important to know. We're not breaking the law, neither is Netiva. They're doing what's perfectly legal. There are only 2 laws on the books in Israel regarding evangelism. The first one is you're not allowed to share Messiah with anyone under 18, unless you're under 18. So we're training some of our grandchildren. And you can't give money and say, here, let me tell you about Yeshua, because that's like bribery. So as Israeli citizens, we obey the laws of the land, and we don't do those 2 things, but we're allowed to do the other things. And Israeli soldiers are allowed at the, what's it called? Like a swearing in, the induction ceremony that they do to join the army. They're allowed to make their vows that they'll serve faithfully on either the Tanakh, the Old Testament, or the Brit Chadashah, the New
So
Testament.
our second tab is outreach.
Outreach, one of my favorite things to do.
She's a natural, I gotta tell you.
Never met a stranger, and just love it how God is just doing divine appointments. The other day, out for a walk, and a man came up just walking in our village and said, my wife is over there in that car, she's got a headache. And so immediately, I used to be a nurse, so I went in the house, got my blood pressure cuff, checked her BP.
Did you put your white jacket on?
No.
Okay.
I ended up sharing Messiah with them, giving them some books, and in Russian, they were Russian, and they were so grateful. We had such a beautiful conversation. This is the kind of thing that happens a lot.
That's just like you, Carolyn.
Praise the Lord.
Yeah. Our second one is worship. In fact, we want to kind of combine outreach and worship here because there's an amazing thing that took place, and it's really Carolyn's story, so I'm going to let her share that.
Well, it's called the Altar of Prayer, and it is a prayer initiative started by 2 friends, Dean Bai and Dr. John Melinde, and they said we need to be praying for Aliyah and for Israel 24/7. So they initiated this virtual house of prayer, and they asked me to lead a 3-hour shift, which I thought was too much, but the Lord said, take it. So every Wednesday from 3 to 6 p.m. Israeli time, you can get online on the Altar of Prayer and join us, because the Lord opened up a new door to take the Altar of Prayer mobile. And so just last week we were in Yavniel, the week before we were in Petach Tikva. We go all over the country.
Tell us how the Lord did that.
And well, the first time I was in Jerusalem alone, and I knew I wouldn't make the bus in time, and so the Lord said, just walk. And so I held my phone out so people could see. And what happened was I just walked up to a man and another lady and said, these are Christians from around the world who love Israel. And it ended up being that we prayed for them. We ended up praying on the street for this man and his daughter. And since then, we met two men last week we were able to share with. And it just, every week, we never know what's going to happen. It's an adventure.
Yeah, it is amazing. So, we have the group with us, the intercessors, and so they're interacting with people. Remember the three girls that we picked up from the Shomron? Yeah, we picked up these young girls, and they got in the car, and we found out what they were doing. And so one of the intercessors asked them, can you tell us a little bit about your life, what it's like being out in the territories? And so they began to share the difficulties that they have, the terrorist attacks,
yeah.
and so forth. And so the intercessors just really connected and started to bless these young girls. And you could see
beautiful.
it was amazing, just the connection that they made with each other. In fact, one of them just raised
did the little heart thing. That was so sweet.
And so what happened is then we finished with what we were doing with the altar of prayer. And
the watch was finished.
The watch was finished, and we were still in the car. So that at this point, we were able to share the gospel with them.
Yeah. Even with all that's happening in the world today, there are still Jewish people coming home. And we know that has to happen because over 64 times in the Word, God says, I'll gather you from all the nations where I've scattered you and bring you home. And He is a covenant-keeping God, and He will fulfill His Word.
That's why there's in Israel today, God has fulfilled His Word, and He's raising up Gentiles to help the Jewish people come home. So when we were in America this summer, we were in many places that were out in the boonies that would be safe places for Jewish people to come as they're fleeing.
It's a really beautiful thing.
When we minister in churches, I love to tell people about Aliyah. And, of course, most of the times people have never even heard of Aliyah. After explaining about what Aliyah is, then I'll tell people this is why it's so important for you to pray for Aliyah, because you all are going to make Aliyah. And then people are like, what? And then I'll explain how, God is often trying to give us a spiritual message. But because our minds are kind of small and not understanding, I know mine is sometimes, He has to give us a physical picture first so that we'll understand a spiritual principle. And so look at Aliyah this way. God is taking a physical people, the Jewish people. He's bringing us back to a physical land, the land of Israel. But what He's really trying to say is at that final shofar blast, we will go up to meet the Lord in the air. And that's what Aliyah means. Aliyah comes from the Hebrew verb la'alot, which means to go up or to ascend. And because it has Yah at the end of it, it means God. So to ascend or go up to God. And that's the meaning, the literal meaning of Aliyah. And so if you pray for the Jewish people to make Aliyah, what you're really praying for is for the New Jerusalem to come, for Yeshua to come, and for you to meet the Lord and be with Him forever. And so then people get it, and they're like, oh, I'm going to pray for Aliyah from now on.